Hey guys, welcome to this tutorial on how to add a subscriber to our Mailchimp list using the Mailchimp API. So here's a quick summary of how this tutorial is structured. So we're going to have 5 videos in total. The first video, which is this one, is going to be the demo of what we're going to build, as well as the project setup. The second video is about connecting to Mailchimp using the API ping test. The third video is about adding a subscriber with server actions. Number 4, providing feedback for member exists error. And finally, adding custom fields, also known as merge fields, to our subscription. Before we start coding, I do want to show you the final result. So we have here a simple subscription form inviting somebody to subscribe to our monthly newsletter. And we have 3 fields: first name, last name, and email, and then a subscribe button. So let's try subscribing somebody. But just before we do that, I do want to show you inside my Mailchimp under all contacts. Currently, I have only one email address here. So we're going to try to add the second one now. So I'm going to say brucewayne@gmail.com, subscribe. Okay, and notice we have a success message. bwayne@gmail.com was successfully subscribed to our newsletter. And if we go to our contacts and refresh, we see the email right here, and we also have our first and last name values. By the way, these are called merge fields or merge tags, and I will talk about how to work with them inside Mailchimp as well. Okay, now I want to show you one more thing. If we try to subscribe the same email again, let's say a user previously subscribed and then they kind of forgot about it and then came back and tried to do it again, notice what we get. So we have this error message saying, oops, it looks like the email is already subscribed to our newsletter. So this is one type of error we're going to be showing our user if something like this happens. And we also have another error message, which is a more generic one, which will display when something else goes wrong during the subscription. So for example, maybe we have the wrong API key, or there's something wrong with the response from Mailchimp server. In that case, it's going to say something like, oops, there was something wrong with subscribing your email. So just before we get into the code, I want to point out some tools that you're going to need for this tutorial, and also some online resources that I'll be referencing as we go along. All right. So first of all, we will be using Next.js, as you saw from the title of the video. Now, we are going to be using server actions, so you will need at least version 14 of Next.js, because that is the version when server actions became stable. You don't necessarily have to use server actions. You could also do everything in API routes if you'd like. The code will be very similar, but in this tutorial I will be using server actions. So if you have Next.js, you will of course also have Node installed. That's important. Then I'm assuming you probably already have an account with Mailchimp, but if you don't, make sure to create one. And they do have a free account available, not just paid ones. So just go ahead and look for it on this website, so mailchimp.com. We will be referencing the Mailchimp developer docs here. So you can find these at mailchimp.com/developer, and specifically we'll be using the Mailchimp marketing API docs. Okay, so I will have links to these in the video description. And finally, if you feel like skipping forward, I will have also a link to my GitHub where you can see the code for this whole video. So feel free to fast forward if you like. But I will be starting with lesson 1 with the starter code here. In fact, I think we can get started from right here. And I'm just going to clone the code here, okay? So you can also download it if you like by downloading the zip, but I will go ahead and copy this link here. And then I'll go to my desktop where I have an empty folder and open my VS Code inside this folder. Okay, let's go to the terminal, and I'm just going to run git clone and then paste in the link and then add a dot at the end to make sure it clones it inside our folder. And now we're going to just run npm install to install the modules. Alright, so now that we have our node modules folder, let's briefly look inside the package.json so you can see what we have installed now. So as you can see, my version of Next.js is version 15.2.1. So that's completely fine as long as it's above 14. And here are a couple of other packages I have. As you can see, it's really not much, so just very minimal. So now we're going to run our development server to see what we have so far. So let's do this. Okay, so you can see we have a very simple form with just one input field for the email and a subscribe button. And then the title is subscribe to my monthly newsletter. Now, eventually, by the end of this tutorial, I will be adding 2 more fields for first and last name, but we're just starting off with just the one field. So let's go inside our code. I cleared out a lot of the boilerplate that comes with Next.js. So you'll see in here, if you go to app and page.jsx, you will see we have just one component here, and that's our form that we just saw. So if we go inside components folder and click on subscribe section.jsx, this is our form. So let me just give you an overview of the code in here. First of all, some of the code we won't be using right away. You can see I have here 3 states that I've prepared ahead of time. So eventually we'll be using these, but not just yet. Inside our JSX, we have an outer div with a light gray background, another div inside that, and then we have our title of our form, so subscribe to my monthly newsletter, and then we have a form element with 2 elements inside it. First, we have our input of type email, and then we have our button, which is the subscribe button. Okay, so this makes up everything we see here. Now below the form, we also have this div, which is invisible to start with, but we will be using it to output some kind of message to our user. So when a subscription is successful, we're going to be showing this subscribe success message. And then when there's an error, we're going to be showing this message. All right, so I hope this makes sense. Now we also have an actions.js file, which is currently empty. So we'll be putting some code in here shortly. And finally, inside our globals.css, I have cleared everything out. I only left this style for the body. And I also added one of my own custom styles for the disabled state of the button, which gives it this light gray color. All right, so I hope this makes sense. Very simple, very kind of minimalistic code to start with. And I'll see you in lesson 2.